Many people say that they want to write a book, yet 9 out of every 10 people who start writing a book never finish it, leaving one of their biggest dreams unfulfilled. So, what is it about the 1 in 10 people who do finish writing their book? What do they have, and what drives them to complete their books, their plays, and their songs? Welcome to the Editor's Desk, where we explore their writing experiences, their motivations, and their struggles. And now, here are your hosts, author, writing coach, and self-publishing guide, Lynn Everard, and author, Louise Gomez. Thursday at 5:30 p.m. or thereabouts here in South Florida, where power surges make us feel like deja vu. And
Yes.
You're watching the Editor's Desk, and my name is Lynn. At an adjustment, walked across the street, 3 feet away from the car, everything just froze. I went into spasm, and I ended up being in traction for 6 weeks.
Wow.
Which was a miserable experience, but I'm happy to say that the pain has been gone for many years.
Wow, I can relate too. I've had several episodes where it's sudden onset, frozen, spasm, can't move, and then it takes me like days to get back. But I released that. Maybe by the end of this conversation with Brajesh, we'll talk about how I released mine, but we're going to introduce the book, The Straw That Broke the Camel's Back by Brajesh Singh. That was an amazing book. I really did enjoy it. And Brajesh is a communications engineer who healed himself from 8 years of lower back pain using the Zero Pain Now process. He discovered that the pathways in the body are analogous to a communications network. Brajesh, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
We are so excited to dive deep and find out about your journey and how you made it through. I loved the book, and I loved how you were so methodical with so many different methods that you did, and you tried different modalities. Maybe you can speak into a little bit about your story and what you've done.
Sure, and thank you, both of you, for sharing your experiences with back pain. And I think there's a statistic that 80% of Americans will experience back pain at some point
Wow.
in their life. So, and right now, I think 1 out of 5 people in the world are experiencing some kind of chronic pain. So, for me, my pain began in 2009, and I was going through 2009 was a financial crisis,
Yeah.
as everyone may remember.
Yeah.
My company was going through layoffs. We were downsizing. I was working from home. I was sitting mostly in a sedentary lifestyle. And there was a lot of stress in my life at that time. Mm-hmm. And my pain just started out of nowhere. And I couldn't explain it. I came home one day in my car, and I couldn't get out of my car.
Wow.
And just had to like fall out of the car and crawl in. And I was fairly young, it was like in the 30s, and I was wondering that this shouldn't happen
Right.
at such an early age. So, and as you said, you read the book, and you can see I'm very methodical. I'm an engineer, so
Yes.
I said I didn't realize at that moment how long it was going to last. It lasted 8 years. And I thought it would be over in a month, over in the next month, and I kept thinking it'll be over, but it wasn't. So I turned on my analytical mind and methodically solved it. Essentially, I've solved it, and that's why I wrote the book, is to help anyone else that's going through chronic pain that keeps coming back to get better.
I was telling Lynn, it really wasn't a funny book, but I did find myself laughing, and it wasn't necessarily laughing at you. I think I was laughing because I recognized myself and the things that you were like, but I went to the doctor, and I would ask all these questions, and you had this checkoff list. I'm like, oh my God, how many times have I done that, right? And we think that we're going to get the answer because we think we have all the right questions, but I think through his journey, he might have found out it was a different path. I don't know. You tried so many different things. What do you think helped your path to get to where you are now, right? Pain-free.
Yeah, and it's great that you mentioned that I tried so many different things. And for viewers that are watching that are experiencing chronic pain, I'm sure they can relate to trying one thing after another thing, after another thing, after another thing. And the solution to getting better is actually 3 simple steps. One is to understand the real cause of the back pain. The second step is to understand what does not cause it, and where we end up spending all our money and time trying to get better. And the third step is to do the process that I describe in my book so that you can get better. So basically, I spend all my time in all the modalities, like you were saying, going to acupuncturists, physical therapists, different doctors, different chiropractors. I think I saw 8 different chiropractors
Wow,
throughout my
that's a
journey, and
lot.
at least 5 different doctors. And I would carry my MRIs on my phone with me.
Wow.
To, if I randomly, and I did randomly run into a surgeon once, and I would show him my MRI, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I think
So,
this."
so
and this."
mostly, so when you went to a bar where most people are pulling out pictures of their children, you're pulling out pictures of your MRI.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I can pretty much see that. Yeah. Well, one of the things that fascinates me about you and your book is that, we always tend to look for things, but we never look in the place that other people might think is the logical place to look. We look where we think is the logical place to look. And so as an engineer, you use scientific method, right? We recorded your findings, you did all of that stuff. So how surprised were you when all of a sudden the area of emotion started coming into the picture?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll give a little bit of a background on that. And what I noticed was I started noticing which muscle of my body was spasming, and it would tighten up, it would be inflamed. And so I did a lot of research and found out it was the quadratus lumborum, the QL in my back. And so I watched these anatomy videos, and I downloaded an anatomy app to see all the movements the QL does, and I started strengthening my QL. And about a month later, it was much stronger, and I felt so happy. I was like, yes, I fixed my muscle. And the next day, just especially happens actually, the flare-ups, people that are in pain can probably relate, the flare-ups come in the least expected moment.
Yep.
And just when you're happy, like cramp, and it's even worse because it's stronger. So that's when I realized that, that this doesn't make any sense in engineering. Like in engineering, when something's broken, like we're re-recording this because we had a power outage, and somebody fixed it, right? And it's done. So things are fixed. But in the back pain, I'm strengthening that muscle. I'm doing all the physical exercises that my physical therapist is telling me, but none of this is working. So when I finally discovered this book called Zero Pain Now by Adam Heller, and he said that the pain is related to stress and tension in our lives. Stress and tension lead to emotions, and then acknowledging those emotions releases that stress. You probably felt, that release when you go do yoga or meditation, or, when you just go outdoors for a walk, you kind of release those emotions and you feel better. But developing this as a practice is what I teach in this book, and what helps you to become pain-free. So when I saw this book and I said, I've tried everything under the sun except introspective. I haven't gone within myself to see what's happening in my life, what's generating stress and tension in my life, and what if he's right? What if that's contributing to the pain? And turns out he was right.
If I remember correctly, the first doctor you went to handed you a book, and you went home and threw it in the trash. Is that right, Prajesh?
Right.
Was that the book?
Yes.
That was
Actually,
the
that
one.
was the book that led me
Okay,
to the
got
next
it.
book. But and I describe that story in my book. So when you read it, you'll know what Luis is talking about. But it's so I guess the universe gives you what you need. The first doctor I saw gave me this book called Healing Back Pain by Dr. John Sarno. He's the originator of this process, and I read this book, and it said that it was being generated by my thoughts, and those were translating into pain in my body, and I was just not ready to hear that message, and I threw it in the trash. And as you'll read in my book, when I later rediscovered that book in a way that I didn't even remember it, that I didn't even realize it was the same book, that suddenly everything fell into place. And that's the way I've written my book. So I've written it in a story fashion of what happened to me, but the most important thing is, as you read it, if you can relate to the story, if you can relate to all these things that you're trying and none of them are working, then it's very likely that this book can help you. And it's very likely that it's stress and tension that's the origin of your pain, rather than anything physical that the doctors are telling you, like herniated discs or degenerated discs or scoliosis or sciatica, which are very common labels that are used to blame the cause of the pain. But they've done a study where 2 out of 3 people that do not have pain have degenerated discs and scoliosis and herniated discs, but they don't have pain. So, and it's a study published in the New England Journal of Medicine, and most doctors are aware of this, and yet they can't explain it. My first doctor even told me that, we see these damages or issues in your spine, and some people get pain from these and some people don't, but I'm not really sure what's the cause. I can give you an injection, I can give you painkillers, I can prescribe you physical therapy, and we can consider surgery. So even doctors are very much aware that back pain is a mystery, and they will tell you, straight out that this may work and it may not work.
I loved how he was so methodical with everything you did. Like anytime you literally and figuratively fell down, you were determined to get back up and try something new and try a new method or try a new program. And so I commend you for your willingness to continue to put yourself out there and say, no, I'm going to figure this out, right? That's, I think, part of your determination really was powerful, because it really, showed me how determined you were to heal yourself. And I feel like that's a component that's necessary, right? I feel the willingness to keep trying.
I think, yes. In hindsight, it seems like I was determined, but living through it, I don't think I was. I had many times given up. My dad, I spoke to him, and he said that you can figure this out. You have an engineering mind. Start taking logs and noting what's working and what's not working. My dad was an inspiration for me getting better. And on the 8th year, I actually hired a life coach to help me. And he said that I want you to go back and see doctors again to try to fix your back pain. And I told him no. And he goes, well, then why did you hire me? It's like, what's the point of me trying to help you if you're not going to follow my advice? And that's when I went back. And one of the doctors told me that you're stuck with this for life. And that was the moment, I think, where the transformation occurred, where I realized that I'm willing to try anything now. I'm open to trying anything. And that's when I became open to finding a solution for me to get better. And like I said earlier, I think that going through all these different trials and errors, where I would get better for a month and then get back in pain, and get better for a month and then get back in pain. The goal of the solution that I'm offering in this book, the Zero Pain Now solution, is not to get you not to get you pain-free, but to keep you pain-free, to stop that from ever happening again, because you will understand the cause of the pain, and then you can just simply interrupt it and change it, and so you won't get that pain coming back.
That's terrific, and we will be right back after a short break. Imagine rediscovering a past life.
Now imagine finding the person you shared it with.
And I just told all my friends, I'm like, you guys have to read this, because I can't put it down. And I have not even gotten to the half of the book yet.
We are Lynn Everard and Luis Gomez, and we are the authors of the book, The Reuniting of Two Past Lives and the Unveiling of the 12 Sacred Lessons.
We invite you to purchase the book and discover the magic.
Welcome back to the editor's desk. Once again, we are your hosts,
I'm Louise Gomez.
and I'm Lynn Everard.
Now back to the show.
And we're back with our guest, Brajesh Singh, the author of The Straw That Broke the Camel's Back. And we were just getting into the part about how you were like really at your wit's end over and over again, but this time you really had it. And now it was time that if anything was going to happen, it was going to happen, and you were going to have a big part in it. So take us through the rest of the story of what actually happened.
I think the story is very simple, that I discovered a process, a mind-body connection process, if you will, that is a very, very simple process that allows us to connect first to the stress and tension, become aware of the stress and tension in our life, and connect to the emotions, and that literally dissolves the pain. And when I work with clients, usually it takes about 6 days for somebody to become pain-free from after 20 years of suffering from pain. And in just 6 days, they're like, wow, the pain is gone. I want to use a metaphor just to give an analogy of this process. In the 1840s, there was a doctor that discovered that when surgeons were operating on patients, the illness from one patient moved to another patient. And they had this lightning moment of, oh, maybe they need to wash their hands. And so the hand washing technique started by this doctor. I think he was Bavarian, and he's the first person that when they started washing their hands, the disease dramatically dropped. And you would think that everyone would start doing this, but they didn't. For 20 years, no one cared. Only his hospital was doing it, even though he was telling everyone that this is what you need to do. In those days, people had all reasons for diseases, and I think smell was one of them, where miasma, I think it was called, and you would smell an orange, or you would stay away from bad smells, or there was bloodletting, and there was all kinds of ways to stop you from getting disease, but no one ever knew about germs. So it wasn't until 1860 that Louis Pasteur discovered pasteurization, where we get the word pasteurization from, where heat can kill germs. He was able to prove that it's germs that are causing us to get sick, and by washing our hands, we will actually reduce disease. But did you know that it wasn't until 1975 that the CDC published guidelines for hand washing?
Wow.
So
Took that many years, huh?
more than 100 years before everyone's catching on. And still, I'm lazy. I don't wash my hands all the time. And I'm, through the pandemic, I'm sure many of us were like, I don't feel like washing it, because we can't see the germs. So we can't see what's the cause. But I think almost everyone will agree that, hand washing does save lives more than not hand washing. So coming back to the solution from this book, many people get relief from, let's say, going to the chiropractor or going to a massage or going through something temporarily until the pain comes back. And so it's not addressing the cause, just like people were noticing that, oh, well, disease got less maybe if I stayed in a clean place, but they didn't connect it to germs. So the solution is, one, understanding what is the cause, one, understanding what is not the cause and where we spend most of our time, and then third, just following the process of trusting that when you connect fully to what's going on in your life, and we use the word biopsychosocial, so a person is 3 factors: biological, psychological, and social. While doctors mostly focus on the biological aspect, they look at you as a machine and they say, this part's broken, we fix it, and you're done. But if you're not getting relief from chronic pain, then I highly recommend that you read this book and consider what's going on in your life as well, and that will help you to get better.
Yeah, I'm particularly fascinated by the matching up the major events in life. At big events, losses of like a job or an income, or even something good can create stress because maybe the person didn't think they were deserving of the good thing that happened, right? So even that can cause stress. And so really anything that can cause stress can then, is it like an overflow kind of thing where the stress overflows the mind and then it goes out into the body and looks for a place to take up residence, and then the pain comes from that? Do you know how that works?
I think the best way I describe it is change. So I don't like change. I like things just the way they are. And when change happens, I feel stress, even if it's a good change. So that's speaking for me. And for people that experience this kind of chronic condition, we found that 80% of the people are perfectionists. So there's a correlation to your personality, and especially perfectionists. 80% of the people that get chronic pain are perfectionists, and 20% are spiritual and religious. And so if you're a perfectionist and you're doing something and things don't go exactly as you planned, which probably happens more often than you care to admit, then what are you going to feel? A lot of stress and tension, right? But perfectionists tend to push on. They're like, no, I'm going to be positive and I can handle this. And it's great to be positive, but I think people stay only in the positive, where you've got to also be compassionate to yourself and say, yes, I'm feeling really pissed off that this didn't work out, or I'm feeling sad or disappointed. And one of the questions, as you said, Lynn, that I ask in the book for the reader to contemplate is, what was going on in their life when the pain started? So for me, I was going through a financial crisis and potential of getting laid off, working from home, a massive change in my life. And I also mentioned in the book that my company did end up going Chapter 11, and I lost all my life savings just in one day. Your 401k, my 401k was in stock, and when a company goes Chapter 11, that stock is worth zero. It was kind of a joke because they sent me an email saying I had like 2 cents left, and I went numb because I didn't know how to even connect with that, and that's when my pain started. Loss. People have losses or divorces. So usually something significant happens in that person's life at the time that the pain starts, and then we end up developing a Pavlovian response, and we create that as a pattern, and we start repeating that pattern over years. So you may notice weather changes causes the pain, or sitting on a certain chair causes a pain, or moving in a certain way causes the pain. And so you're convinced that that's what's causing the pain. But that's just the pattern that you developed when a significant episode occurred in your life, and now it's being triggered by even smaller events going on every day in your life.
You spoke into something, if I remember correctly, the DPS, which is kind of, maybe you can speak into that. I found that so fascinating, how our brain gets that signal. Well, I don't want to botch it up, so you'll have to explain it, but I remember looking at it saying, oh my God, that makes so much sense.
Right.
Can you reference that?
Yeah, the good news is that that if you're having chronic pain, and we call the condition divergent pain syndrome, and if you can diagnose yourself that you have divergent pain syndrome, then you can get better. And the word divergent pain syndrome, what the definition is to divert your attention from an unbearable emotion to something physical like pain. So when I had my financial losses, I didn't want to think about it. Just thinking about it there was nothing I could do. It was completely out of my control. I couldn't rewind time. I couldn't, write to the government saying, hey, I lost my money, please give it back. There was absolutely nothing I could do. So then I refused to face the situation, and divergent pain syndrome kicked in. It's to divert my attention from an unbearable emotion to something physical like pain. And that's what's usually happening in our lives is when you're getting chronic pain, there's something going on in your life that is actually very simple to address. Takes a lot of honesty and courage, but just go ahead and address it and do some journaling, write about it, and that will help to relieve and connect to your emotions and help you to get better.
Yeah.
Well, that's
great.
terrific. I mean, that's something that people really need to know and need to understand that there's possibility for them. It's interesting because really whenever someone has a loss or have gone through a major thing in their life, it seems like this process could help them even prevent the pain from coming. Is that possible?
Yes, that is possible, but the process is so unconscious. Like I drove here for an hour. If you were to ask me how many times I looked in my rearview mirror, I have no idea.
Right.
Right.
I just do it unconsciously.
Right.
You know, none of us really know, but we're doing it.
Right.
And so, sure, you can have an event going in your life and be preemptive, but it's not that easy. But what we do know is that the moment you feel the pain, if you follow this process, within minutes, you'll get better. So we use the pain as a thermometer, right? Like
Right.
some things may happen in your life and you'll be fine, and some things may happen and it may not be fine. But don't worry about looking at whether I should avoid doing this or I don't want to do this. Go ahead, do everything in your life. The moment you feel pain, you just simply recall this process, do the process, and within minutes, the pain will just melt away. And as you get better at that,
Yeah.
you'll start.
And that's great. So what would you like to share with our audience about something you have coming up, a service you provide, anything like that? What can you share with us?
Sure, yeah. Thank you for that question. My book has everything that you need to heal yourself. And if you need additional help, I offer a coaching service. So you can go to my website, Zero Pain. It's zeropa.in. And you can read about my services there. And I also encourage you to go to paintest.org, which is another website that I have. And you can take a 2-minute pain test, and it will ask you about 10 questions. And based on that, you will know right away whether you're a good candidate for having DPS. And if you are, then you can definitely get better using this process.
Wow, thank you for sharing that so much. You have a lot of people that you're going to be helping. I'm excited for you. A lot of
Yeah.
people need that service.
Absolutely.
Lot.
Yeah, if you think of the numbers, you mentioned the numbers of people with back pain, it's really pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So, we're excited that you were able to come and share this with us
Thank you
today.
so much for sharing this.
And, even just like looking at our own lives, right? To now, if pain shows up,
Oh, yeah.
there's a sense of knowing that there's another option
Oh, yes.
to deal with it. So that's tremendous. And we want to share with you what we have coming up next week.
Yeah, who do we have? You have
So we
your
have
friend?
Eileen Lashinsky
Nice.
next week. And Eileen has a fabulous book about body image.
I just picked it up, so I haven't started yet, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited.
Yeah, and
I just got it.
again, it's one of the things that's so much fun about doing this show is we get all these different topics, and
Oh, I love it.
and there's something new
Yep.
every week. And so with that,
Thank you so much.
we are going to wrap up here and wish everyone a wonderful week.
Yep.
And we'll send a special message to our friends on the West Coast
Yes.
of Florida that we are thinking of you and sending you good energy as
Definitely.
you dig out from Hurricane Ian. And with that, we will
Thank
say
you.
good night.
Good night. Thank you for sharing. We'll see you next week. Thank you so
Even
much.
if you have never written a book, you are still an author. In fact, we all are. In every moment, each of us is writing our own unique story that we call our lives. Because many of us are, as in the lyrics of the Dan Hill song, Sometimes When We Touch, writers still trapped within our truth. If this is you, why not start writing your thoughts in a journal? It will help you get your truth on paper and could just be the start of your own book. And don't forget to join us here every week for the next edition of The Editor's Desk.